Hey, and welcome to another episode of the Unspoken Truths of Digital Leadership, Living the Leadership Values, where our guests will talk about the unspoken truths of leadership, the dark sides, and the learnings from dealing with conflict with integrity. And today, I have a very, very special guest that I've been trying to get hold of for ages. And this man is Joe Glover from the Marketing Meetup. He is the founder or the creator of this community, and it is a community for marketers, but also more people, entrepreneurs and such. But I will let the man himself talk about it. Welcome, Joe.
Thanks, dude. Thank you for having me. I hope to live up to your billing of speaking unspoken truths.
Thank you, Joe, for coming. I mean, it's been a long time since I've been going to the Marketing Meetup prior to when you had the live events and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And every time I went, I was like, hashtag where's Joe? It's so hard to get you at the Milton Keynes community.
Well, the funny thing is that I grew up about 45 minutes away from Milton Keynes in a town called Daventry in Northamptonshire. And I now live just outside Cambridge in a village, a tiny little village where my wife and I bring the average age down by about 20 years. And I think during that period of time, I was probably traveling to events three or four nights in the week. And Nick and Fee, who run the Bedford and Milton Keynes sessions, they were actually the first people to ever run a Marketing Meetup event who wasn't myself. So they had it just down to a pat. So it was like one of those things where it's like, I'm going to try and help the people who are newer into the process and stuff like that. But Nick and Fee, I can drop in when I need to and stuff like that. But they're amazing. So like, I'll just let them get on with it and frankly got out of the way because they're probably doing a much better job than I was anyway. So yeah, I'm really grateful for those two. So that's where I was hiding.
These two are really amazing. They really stepped up to the plate and it's been great.
Absolutely. They're absolutely brilliant. I feel lucky to work alongside them both.
So for those that don't know who you are, Joe, just quick introduction. How did you come about doing the Marketing Meetup?
So the Marketing Meetup started about 5 years ago. And it's mad to sort of think that. But at the time, I was a solo marketer working in a company of 3 people. So, probably quite a familiar situation for a lot of people. I knew that I wanted to meet other marketers. I knew that I wanted to learn about marketing, but I'm far more introverted than I'm extroverted. This kind of scenario where we're speaking one-on-one in a quiet room, it's okay. But like walking into those big rooms with people in like those horrible circles, where they all stand in circles and sort of like you kind of have to sort of break your way into it and then say hello and say what you do. And you get one of 2 reactions. You either get a hello and people carry on talking, or you get a, oh, hello, I can sell to you. And like neither of those situations felt very comfortable. I'd walk into a networking room and be the guy in the corner on his phone, wishing that somebody would speak to him, but not having the nerve to do it myself. So it was in this time that I decided to create an event which would be in the spirit of what I would want to attend myself, what I'd feel comfortable in attending myself. And really, it started as a hobby. It was never intended on being a business. It was just something that I did in my spare time. People called it like the marketing nerd club and stuff like that. And that's true, we're just finding out marketing together. But the weird thing about it was that over the course of time, people started joining the events, coming along, and eventually people started saying, this thing that you're doing in a server in Cambridge, well, I'm traveling from Birmingham to come to this canteen. So do you mind if I do it closer to my house? So, I said, yeah, whatever, of course I don't mind, just don't mess it up type of thing. And I'll try and help you along the way. But over the course of these 5 years, then the events scaled and our reputation built and the community kept on growing to the point where we were planning pre-corona 140 events for this year. We had 18,000 members in the community, 14 locations around the UK, and we just started in New York, which was, I don't know, a weird turn, but also an amazing one. And all it is, very simply at its core, is a place where people can come together, they can learn, they can meet, but they can do it in a place where they're going to be valued as a human being. They're going to be surrounded by kindness. Love is at the core of what we do. And love, not just like in a horrible sort of cliche way, but you know what? We actually really genuinely care about people and their progression. So that's the spirit we've always done things. It's grown very organically. It's grown very naturally. And I was saying to you before we went live that I feel like I'm just the luckiest man alive, really, that I can sit in the middle of this community, help people every day, and in doing so, you know, have an awful lot of fun too. So that's the Marketing Meetup in a nutshell.
It's something that I resonated with, especially your video when I first watched it, about being the introverted, shy guy that went to networking meet events and just like never seemed to fit in, no matter how hard I tried.
Mm.
Like I even tried to boost my confidence, do public speaking, and try and do all this stuff to boost up my confidence, just to network better.
Yeah.
I was like, is it me, or is it just I never seem to fit into these networking events?
No, you know, of course it's not you. You know, the format is difficult, and you know, even the way that the Marketing Meetup do it isn't perfect either, because there is an expectation to walk into a big scary room. The one thing that we hope that we do better than a lot of people is by creating an atmosphere of permission where people can actually, we speak about three things: listening, saying hello, and being positively lovely. And the first two of those things, listening meaningfully, you know, so like actually taking the time to engage with the human being in front of you, know about their thoughts, their desires, their loves, all those things, and actually taking the time to bring those into yourself and say, I know the person in front of me. That's such an important part of networking, but we always skip that. And then the second thing is saying hello, because I remember that wave of gratitude that like absolutely just swam through my body the moment people said hello to me at a networking event. You know, so to your question, no, of course you're not alone. You know, it's not a natural thing to do in many ways. I mean, it is for some people, but it's certainly not for others. You know, as is more or less everything in life. But I would say that it's also a learnable skill. You know, over the course of time, you know, I am the introvert. I was the proto-introvert, if you want to say that, for the Marketing Meetup. But over time, I became better at these events. And it's not about changing your personality or your values or how you feel about these things, but it is about learning how to deal with it and sort of create a scenario where you can be at your best. Now, whatever that might be, there are tricks along the way. My old boss used to wear loud shirts to events like that because people would come up to him and say, "Hey, I love your shirt." And that was his way into a conversation. And it's the same for me. You know, I mean, if we're looking about my experience at the Marketing Meetup today, I'm still an introvert. I still walk into these rooms absolutely terrified, but I've built a community where people selfishly know who I am. So I can walk into these rooms and people say hello to me now. You know, that's a way of engineering necessary evil of networking into a way where, you know, it can work for you too. So I think there's ways and means around these things. You just got to find the one that works for you.
But what I love about what you created is bringing back humanity into the networking events, and it was also combining networkers, oh, not networkers, like marketers even, that wanted to learn about marketing, that for many years have just been fighting each other in rivalries because the boss says so, right? We need to outmarket our competitors. We need to outdo the marketing in other companies. And all this like conflict of marketers is like, are we just pawns and just tools for people to use, right? And we don't really have that community sense of we're just marketers that want to do our job, or make the world a better place, or just passionate for marketing even.
Absolutely. Well, you're spot on. You know, I think that kind of adversarial spirit becomes from a place of poor targeting more than anything. You know, I think it's very easy to walk into a room where there's 100 digital marketing consultants and think every one of those people is my competition. But actually, if you think about it, you know, if there's 100 digital marketing consultants in the room, every one of those could choose to specialize down in a niche which they are uniquely placed to help a certain amount of people in. So you could be the best SEO person for bike repair shops in the entire world. You could create the best about us pages in the entire world. They're completely different skill sets, but if you went to that higher level of digital marketing consultant, people would easily perceive each other as competition. So there's an encouragement there where folks actually look at their positioning, look what they can bring uniquely to the market and bring that thing, which then also encourages a place where people can come and collaborate and help each other out with their knowledge, which is unique rather than sort of competing. Because at the end of the day, if you feel like you are speaking to someone who is a direct competitor in the truest sense of the word, I'm a competitive dude, and I want to win. So I even find, despite espousing about the values of collaboration and helping one another, there is part of me which is like, I'd quite like to withhold some information so I don't lose my competitive advantage. So with that in mind, it's really important, the framing of these conversations, as much as it is about the actual conversations themselves, which does come back down to humanity, but then it also comes down to very practical marketing thoughts, which I don't think many people have when they enter these rooms, but if they did, perhaps it would feel a lot more open, friendly, and collaborative as well.
But you've also, managed to put like founders and people who's got massive, companies themselves together in the room where they could just have open conversations and not be competitive or like a rival.
Yeah, well, it's so true. I think, to the point of humanity, we're all making this up as we go along. We're all just people. We're all, operating in a system that we've collaboratively decided to create. So it's in those moments, if you actually strip it back to its bare bones, then you're like, yeah, you know what? It doesn't have to be that complicated, and there's enough money out there for all of us. There really is. And if we can find a way to elevate each other and help each other to find that financial benefit, which then most importantly has a life benefit, then it also comes around. I don't, I'm not spiritual or anything like that, but certainly business karma is something I do believe in. And I think, when people look after each other, it definitely comes around. It's a bit of an odd scene to sort of quote, but I remember quite like a defining moment in my life, in a weird kind of way, was watching a really crap version of War of the Worlds with Tom Cruise in it, I think it was. And like, it was just this scene where like the aliens came down for the first time, and the aliens come down, they sort of rise up above all the people and they start shooting, and it's this street scene, and there's like, there's a businessman, there's a school child, there's a dog, a cat, whatever it is, and the aliens indiscriminately shoot everything in sight. And in those moments, whether it's the business person, the rich person, poor person, whatever they might be, they all die. And so in that moment, I don't know why I got something as profound as this from that scene, because it completely wasn't what it was about. In that moment, I thought, well, you know what? If aliens come down and start shooting at us, we're all going to die the same way. So we might as well treat each other the same way too.
I'm really surprised you managed to pull a lesson out of that scene.
Yeah, me too. That's a very pensive 15-year-old.
A profound way of getting a lesson from that.
Yeah, absolutely. I was probably analyzing it a bit too much.
How did you get, in a way, how did you discover your own values? Like, love was so important for you that you put it in the heart of your community, the way you do business, the way you do everything, I suppose. Because before I even met you now, I just met you virtually in your YouTube video, really. But I felt I'm more like a energy, if you just want to put it in a spiritual sense. I kind of feel energy, and I felt a lot of love and compassion out of your video. And that's just from online videos. I haven't even met you in person yet, so but I felt it really strongly, and that's why I was like, this guy is onto something and really big, regardless what he does, with his love in mind, will create very, very powerful things along the way.
I think you did. I think, I think I'm lucky, really. Not, and this is, something I'm grateful for every day, but I had amazing parents, and amazing figures around me when I grew up. And so I remember walking in to the kitchen one day and my mum was crying. I was like, Mum, what are you crying for? And the radio was on, and it was the London Marathon playing, which is funny because we're recording this the weekend after the 2020 London Marathon. And as I say, I said, why are you crying, Mum? And she said, the people, they're just trying so hard. And in that moment, it showed to me, like, the human being raising me was like the world's most empathetic human being in the entire world. So in that moment, and so if you take that moment and you take 10% of that empathy, then, hopefully that's what I've got. And if I do have 10% of the empathy of my mum, then you can't help but look at the world in a way where you see not everyone having the same easy time of things that you've had, or just how business is really just a bunch of people doing a bunch of crap in return for a financial reward. And really financial reward is just a secondary reinforcer for stuff like food and for excitement, and stuff like that. So really money doesn't matter that much. And if you take the money out of business, then it's just a bunch of people doing stuff. And you want to do stuff with cool people doing good things for the right reasons. So, and weirdly, money follows after that point too. So I guess it starts with my mum being the most empathetic person. It follows with a general attitude that money is not the only thing with life. And if money is not the only thing in life, then, you start seeking those opportunities to have fun and to help other people and all those things. And again, I appreciate that I'm saying this from a point of privilege, because right now we're going to be going through a difficult time when money is going to be very much on people's minds. And in those moments, money is a very meaningful thing. So please don't think that I'm belittling that. My experience related to that was simply that I took my first job purely on the basis of doing that, of making money. And it was a horrible thing. It was the worst job of my life. I left after 4 or 5 months maybe. And the reason was, well, I was just not getting anything from it. I was in a room and I was having a horrible time. And so I quite quickly decided to leave that role and follow something I was passionate about, which was marketing, and that's set me down a good path. And I've been lucky in that way. So I guess the summarizing comment on there is that if you find yourself in a privileged position, it's actually your responsibility to elevate other people to that same position as you. So really, that's where my life is now dedicated.
That's amazing. And I'm not surprised. Well, actually, I am surprised that you said the same thing about the money chasing on the job. Because for all of us who did start our, graduating and then going to a job, and then you climb your way up into the corporate ladder, right?
Yeah.
Same thing for what I did. I went, startup, then SME, then I got headhunted for corporate. And when you're like, oh, international corporate is like, you kind of like made it in a way.
Yeah.
And I solely went on the basis of because they were offering a higher salary.
Yeah.
But for that moment, that's when my soul got destroyed as well. I think within 8 months, I left. It wasn't the career path that I wanted to take. It wasn't what I wanted to do. There was just many, many political things that you could not go beyond your level because you're not at that level.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, well, what am I here to do if all I'm here to do is just spreadsheets and numbers? I was like, that's not digital marketing. I'm not creating anything. I was like, I'm here to create stuff. I'm here to make things happen. And because of all the corporate, politics and rules and things I have in place, it's like, I can't create anything.
No, you're spot on. It comes down to the reason why, without meaning to go to Simon Sinek, is the reason why you do things, right? And for some people, and I think it's important to say that for some people, money is a motivating factor, and that's okay. It's just not ours, and you've spoken there about creativity, and independence and the ability to choose what you're doing. And if those three factors are things that you value in your life and will leave you to be a happy life, you got to do those things, so that's the choice we make, right?
Absolutely. When you went full time into creating your community, you left all behind your security of finance and salaries and all the certainty, I suppose, that you're getting a salary every month. How did you deal with the uncertainty of stress or things like that, or did you have backup plans in place?
No, so it's interesting. So the point which I decided to leave, so I ran the Marketing Meetup as a hobby for 3 years. The time when I decided to make the jump, so to speak, was when the Marketing Meetup matched my salary, which I was only in a marketing agency and a marketing manager within it. So that wasn't, crazy money by any means, but it was enough that we could pay the bills and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So that was the leaping point. And probably for that reason, I was able to act with a certain amount of certainty in that jump. I wouldn't have made that if I was starting from nothing personally, because that's just how I'm wired. So, and this is also my first time sort of running a business. The second thing to say is that I think people vastly overrate how safe working for someone else is, and there's a certainty in redundancy payments and that sort of thing, but and without meaning to come across insensitive to the world as it is today, but we're seeing a climate where people are losing their jobs, and treating that as a guaranteed paycheck and stuff like that is simply not true. So I think the narrative around certainty when employed for someone else is largely false. And actually, if you start to think about it in terms of your ability to control your own future and your own destiny, then actually self-employment is vastly more secure in a sense, because you're able to create the future and you're not as reliant on other people in that kind of way. So, both of those are relevant factors. Finally, I mean, it's just so much more fulfilling to be able to do the stuff that you want to be doing every day. So, I think I absolutely adored my time. So the agency was called Genie Goals, and I adored them, and I still stay in touch with them because they're great people. But it felt like the right time to move when I did. There hasn't been a single day where I've regretted it. That being said, there's undoubtedly been a lot of hard days, crying on the train or crying in the office or crying in the car or whatever it may be along the way. But that being said, I think the time felt right and it was a natural progression for me. And I think most people will probably feel the same if they've got a side business which starts to take off and they're able to afford a lifestyle by it.
And how did you deal with the tension, that came with it?
It's funny. Sorry, my Google Home's going to go off in a second. For some reason, it thought we said Google. I can see it flashing, and I'm like, no. I think that every day is a tension point, a potential tension point. And this is something that I've been recognizing with and consolidating in my mind quite a lot recently. And the reason is that more or less every day I'll either have a 10 out of 10 day or a 2 out of 10 day. There's very rarely anything in between. And the reason where I've come to it, or the reason I've accepted that, is that I realize I love this thing so much. You know, I love doing what I do. I love the people who I do it for. And it's like any loving relationship. You get the benefit of the highest highs you'll ever have in your life, and also the lowest lows. So, you know, for a while I was like, you know, should I be aspiring to have 6 out of 10 days, you know, but like every day be a 6 out of 10? But then I thought, no, you know, what's the fun out of having 6 out of 10 days every day, when actually you could have the 10 out of 10 days and have them 4 days a week, but then have 1 2 out of 10 day. So it's for that reason, you know, I think the direct answer to your question is one of acceptance. You know, it's accepting that not every day is going to be 10 out of 10. Taking those 2 out of 10 days and sort of accepting those for what they are, but also finding coping mechanisms for those moments. So one of the best ways that I've found to do that is to find a network, and whether that's the Marketing Meetup network, but actually more ideally a particularly close network. I've got a WhatsApp group with 5 people in it, and I just remembered on a particular day I was traveling up to an event in Newcastle. And this wasn't anything about the Newcastle event or anything like that. It's just I missed my wife and I missed my dog. And I really, really, really wanted to be at home with them. And I didn't want to be on a train to Newcastle that day. I was running an event that night. And you know how there's always like a bit of a weirdo on public transport? Well, yeah. On that day, that public transport weirdo was me. You know, I was the guy, you know, I don't know whether anyone noticed or not, but I started crying on the train, you know, and it was like, I just didn't want to be there. So in that moment, I dropped a text to those group of lads in that group and said, you know what, chaps, I'm having a really, really crap day. And within 5 minutes, I kid you not, I had 3 phone calls from them saying, you know, mate, are you okay? Let's speak through this. What can we do? You know, and having that outlet, having that benefit of those people around me in those moments meant that day became tolerable, and I woke up the next morning. It was a new day, and we moved forward. So it's a complete lie to say that entrepreneurship, running your own company, is going to be the best thing that you ever do every day. Well, it certainly has that potential, but you need that support mechanism around you. You need those opportunities to have people around you who can support you. And the way that you find those people is by offering support to them first. You know, and it was funny because that particular WhatsApp group was one that I'd put together, you know, to help those other people. And in those moments, I actually needed it the most. So it definitely swings around in roundabouts. So, you know, finding those opportunities, I think, is really important.
Yeah, I'm glad you said having that support network, because in entrepreneurship, in business, it's so, you know, we work for ourselves, we're looking after staff, we're looking after all sorts of things. We're wearing like multiple hats, right?
Mm.
We're constantly on the go. It's like, you know, if we're so busy responsible for looking after everyone else, who's looking after us,
yeah.
Right? We kind of forget about ourselves because we're so selfless, I would say. For those who work for themselves, who are in business, we're all doing it for someone else. We're creating a solution for someone else.
Mm-hmm.
We're trying to solve a problem for someone else. It's you know, it's not a problem that unless you're creating a product that you solve for yourself.
Yeah.
And then obviously helping others on the way. But Absolutely. It's such a tough lifestyle as well, I'd say.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's so much sacrifice that you have to make along the way, especially like, you know, all the late night hours and stuff like that.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I do agree with that, but I think it's about finding balance as well. You know, if there's one word you can live life by, it's balance. And there's been some hard miles involved in the groups and stuff like that, but I'm not saying that it depends on your objectives, right? You know, and it's very rare that I will finish after 5 o'clock now. because, you know, that's a choice that I'm making, and I'm probably sacrificing a fair bit of money for that. But, you know, I get to spend the evening with my wife. So I'd say, yes, there is a vast amount of like hard labor involved, so don't discount that. But first, if you find something you love, it doesn't feel like work. And second, you know, you can make that choice, and it is your choice, but so long as you're happy to live by them. I slightly disagree with the trope that all entrepreneurs need to be working 16-hour days, because it's unhealthy as much as anything. So yeah.
Yeah, I don't agree with that as well.
Okay.
Definitely a balance. How did you find your routine when you started? Obviously, when you first started, everything was a bit different.
Yeah, so I guess at the start things were revolving around live events. So there was a lot more travel involved and stuff like that. Perhaps it's better to stop thinking about the old world now and sort of start to think about the present one. So in Corona times, you know, then all our events are online, so there's no travel involved. So we're spending a lot of time promoting events. We're developing a membership platform at the moment, so like there's a lot of work going into that. And the routine really has come about naturally. I do like Tim Ferriss and stuff like that, but I do not have one of those first 5 minutes of the day routines. I wake up, I'll walk the dog at some point, I'll have breakfast, then I'll get cracking, you know, and really every day is different enough that it's not a consistent thing saying, you know, like I meditate for half an hour or whatever. I do really like meditation, and I think it's a very useful thing for a lot of people. So like, if you've never tried it, then give it a go, because I think it was transformative for me in a period of my life where I was probably like, you know, never went to the doctor about it or anything like that, but I was probably like a little bit depressed and stuff like that. And meditation was useful to sort of take that time to actually inspect how I was feeling and kind of accept it or not. But that being said, you know, to more directly answer your question, then there's no routine. I did try for a bit after reading Dan Pink's book, When, in which he recommended that people take procedural tasks for the morning when their brains are more switched on, and more creative tasks for the afternoon when their brains are a bit more feeling a little bit more creative and wandering a bit. But I'll be lying if I said that I actually followed that through for any sort of meaningful amount of time. I just do what I need to do now. So.
Oh, that's very interesting. Because meditation works for me. I do it morning, 10, 15 minutes just to, I think for me it's more of like just setting the tone for the day.
Mm-hmm.
Like generally there's a theme that comes up in the meditation, like today be more loving, or be more kind, or be more compassionate, kind of thing, and that kind of sets the tone for the rest of the day. So in my conscious behaviors, or when I'm around and doing things, it's always in the back of my mind throughout the day, just to be like that. But yeah, your reference to doing tasks in the morning, I was like, I'm not really a morning person myself. For those that do know, who's been following me and doing my stuff, is I'm a night owl.
Right.
My mind switches on probably afternoon, but it really gets buzzing after 9 o'clock.
Interesting.
And that's the time when most people are like going to bed and stuff, right? That's winding down. But for me, that's when I'm really switched on. I'm plowing on creating stuff. It's like, it's crazy.
Maybe it didn't surprise me with a room like what you've got there with your neon lights and
This is a new setup because of the transition of being online.
Yeah, it looks
I was
good.
like, I need a new setup, need a new studio look.
Yeah, it looks proper. So I like it.
Thank you. So when you're going through your collaborations and such, what do you just go into the whole pitch, or is it more of like, can we create something together, like a project?
So is this with our speakers or more broadly?
Speakers, collaborations, partnerships, for the community.
The way that the Marketing Meetup grew quite strongly in the first instance was we did go out to quite a lot of organizations and say, look, we're doing this thing, and in exchange, we'll put you on our email list if you wouldn't mind giving us a shout out to your community. And that worked particularly well. That was really, really useful to get that initial sense of momentum. And in fact, what's happened is that a lot of those people have stayed on in the long term. So Brand Recruitment and Cambridge Marketing College are two that I'm thinking of. And they've stayed on with us the entirety of the journey of the Marketing Meetup sponsors. So initially in exchange, and then it changed to a financial relationship. So that was, amazing. So in those collaborations, it was the very simple thought process is, how can we benefit these people and how can they benefit us? And that's much the same. Things have changed slightly over the past 5 years in the sense that we've now got access to a community that many people would like access to, which is, again, not something I'm taking lightly, but it's also something we've built with hard work. Mm-hmm. For that reason, I'm fiercely protective of the community, and in fact say no to like 99.999999% of the stuff that comes our way, because it's overtly promotional or doesn't feel in line with the stuff that we're doing. Mm. And ultimately, I feel like that's caused a culture of trust from the community, as they know that whatever we put in front of them is going to be put in front of them for the right reasons. So I'd say in terms of how we approach these things, then our probably primary policy is saying no.
That's awesome.
Yeah, but the second thing is that we say no on the basis of a set of values, and that set of value, or that question, I guess, that we ask ourselves is, will this benefit the community? Mm. And if the answer is yes, then we find a way to continue that conversation. If we don't feel like it will benefit the community, then what's the point in doing it? It might be a paycheck, but at the end of the day, I'm building something that I want to hand over to, the whole community and say, look, this is yours to run from now on. Do what you want to do with it, and create this amazing space where you can learn, grow, thrive, feel like you're welcome, connected, and treated with love and kindness. That's what I want to do. So the only place that we're going to achieve that mission is if we have a place where people trust us to do the right thing for them. So we just act in a way which benefits them, and with the people that we do let in, there's inevitably a sort of financial relationship as well. But because they've been selected for all the right reasons, then they're also the people that resonate with our audience. So I think it's one of these things that works on many levels. And like, I've been tempted in the past and probably had a couple of conversations in the past which I've said yes to, where it has been purely on the money. But inevitably, those have always been the ones that have lasted the least amount of time as well. So I think lesson learned, just find those people who share your values and spend time with those.
When I keep saying when, I was starting to notice my thought pattern.
Yeah.
I'm picking up my own thought patterns. It was like, no, hang on a second. Let's go back a little bit. When you talked about, again, when you touched upon that, you said about depression. Was that more of just because you wasn't at the path where you wanted to be, or was it because of other things that was just going on in your life?
So at the time, I was working for someone else. We were in a position where the results weren't going where they wanted to be. There was an immense amount of pressure on the people that I was working alongside, and I didn't feel like we were progressing to a place where we needed to, and we weren't able to communicate that either. So we were afraid to communicate that sort of stuff. The result was I probably internalized a lot of stuff at work, which wasn't particularly useful. it wasn't that people were unwilling to support. I just don't think they necessarily were able to, either through not having the tools to be able to react to that scenario, or also feeling like they were in that scenario. So, quite understandably not being able to look past themselves to be in a position to help another person. The result was, I remember days where I was sat at my desk, and like physically shaking, and just like really not wanting to be there, but also physically shaking and sort of dreading that moment where certain individuals would walk over to me and want to speak to me, because I knew that in those moments, I'd either not have the answer, or I wouldn't have the answer that they wanted, or, I would have a sense of inadequacy. So, there were a number of contributing factors, and the result was that I spent a lot of time feeling crap at work. Things didn't progress as they wanted to, and as I wanted them to. So again, I'm quite a competitive person, despite wanting to help people. So like, I still wanted to win, and we weren't winning. And ultimately, just the relationship broken down, and like I started taking sick days and stuff like that, which I've never really done. And I like, it's funny because since I've been in the marketing meetup and at Genie Goals, I've probably taken one sick day in like 7 years or something like that, So I think it shows that the headspace in those moments was in the wrong place. So really, that sort of period of time, it was very much work related. In my personal life, things were going great, and I also not like to overstate the severity of things, because I think people go through a hell of a lot worse than what I did and stuff like that. It was simply that I really, really cared about this thing, and it just wasn't going that way that I wanted it to, and quite a deep emotional reaction to it, which could be characterized as depression, but other people might not. And yeah, it wasn't particularly nice. So
how did you climb out of it?
There was a couple of ways, really. So one of the things that we were working towards was actually a sort of time finite thing. So we worked towards it, and then it was over. So in those moments, you just keep going until you don't, and then you're past it, and that sort of thing. One of the things that was very useful was meditation. So it's funny to speak about that. But in those moments, I downloaded the Headspace app, which was my introduction to meditation, and that was really useful to just take that attitude of inspection of how I was feeling that day, and actually deciding not to fight it, but rather just notice it, and not look to solve it either, but just notice that emotion, sort of go, okay, that's how I'm feeling today. And as you said when you were speaking about meditation, at least you could set yourself up for that day with an acceptance of how you were that day. And then the last thing, so this didn't happen to climb out of depression, so to speak. It was slightly after that period, but I also got out of that job, and I love the human beings that I work with, and I've got so much respect for them, and what they created was incredible. So like, it's really, really important to say that like the business was fab, everything they did was brilliant. It was just not right for me in that moment in time in my career. And I think had I been doing that job today, I would have been approaching it very differently. So, it's something that's really important to emphasize there, because that relationship is an important one to me in my life. Nonetheless, I think it was just an important point to raise there, was that, there's probably a lot of people who might be listening to this or are in their careers right now who probably don't feel like they're being supported, or like they're fulfilled, or like they want to be there. And sometimes it is okay to sort of say, you know what, I'm going to look for something else, because life is too short at the end of the day to spend your life in the state like that.
Yeah, I can relate, because I wasn't like I mentioned, I was in that state. It was like climbing to the point when, you know, I was physically and mentally burnt out. And like never in like 6 or 7 years that I have had been ill for at least 3 to 4 weeks, I think.
Right.
I was physically and mentally burnt out to the point where I was going through that depression stage where I was like, life was unfulfilled. I'm earning a lot of money, but I'm not happy and all of this stuff. And I was like, you know what? This corporate ladder isn't for me. But the reason why I did it was because for my parents, really.
Yeah.
It was because in the Asian Chinese community, I'm not sure if you know about this, but if we're not a doctor, lawyer, and accountant, we're deemed unsuccessful.
Yeah.
And I'm sure a lot of, you know, Asian people who probably listen to this will relate that, you know, this is the cultural expectation, I would say, that we raised up with from our parents, especially in this day and age. If not doctor, lawyer, and accountant, we're deemed as unsuccessful because they can't brag to their friends and families about how successful their child is, or, you know, profession, whatever it is. But in this day and age, it's a completely different world, right? We could be streamers, we could be gamers, we could be creators, we could be YouTubers, TikTokers, Instagrammers. Like, the world is our oyster right now. We can create and be whatever we want to be. Should we love it and put our heart to it, right?
Absolutely. No, I couldn't agree more with you, dude. You know, and I guess there's a couple of things there. There's the generational gap, you know, which is a thing, and secondly, you know, these jobs didn't exist, you know, even 15 years ago, you know. So if you accept that as a truth, then in those moments, then you decide that, you know, it's okay. I mean, the final thing is that, you know, this definition of success is a difficult one, you know, because the paradigm, and it's one that's only growing at the moment rather than shrinking, is that, you know, entrepreneurs are almost like the new rock stars, you know, and stuff like that. And you know, the way that we outwardly express that is through material items and through status of our job titles. I mean, both of those things, they're nothing more than peacock feathers, you know. They're sort of external things, but don't sort of speak to the internal traits of someone's character and you know, all that stuff. So, you know, I think how we define success should be a very personal pursuit, and really that's probably one of the reasons why hopefully, you know, I hear your story, and it's one that, you know, no doubt, you know, will be played out a million times over the world. But, you know, the fact that you've chosen to choose something else, you know, is amazing to me, you know, in a very positive way. So, you know, hats off to you as well, mate, you know, because you can't, as much as you love these people, then day to day, the only person that you live with is yourself, you know, and if you are looking in the mirror every day and saying, I'm not proud of you, you know, as in yourself, then it's no life well lived. So you got to do what you got to do sometimes, and that's certainly not on the basis of pleasing other people.
How did you become so selfless in creating this community? Was this something you did previously did you create a community beforehand, or was this your first ever time creating a community?
No, mate. You know, I'm 28. I know I look about 49, but so I'm still fairly new into this, you know. And that being said, you know, then I just, you know, it's very kind of you, first of all, to say that I'm very selfless in it, but I don't see it as a selfless act, because at the end of the day, I'm able to make my living, you know, doing it and stuff like that. So, you know, by that definition, then it's not entirely selfless. That being said,
it's because you're giving in what your mission to create a community is you know, it's like I said, it's you know, in this, especially in this podcast, the digital unspoken truths of digital leadership, right? It's a leadership role. It's a huge responsibility to be carrying that on your shoulders right now, with the sense of 18,000 plus members right around the world.
Absolutely. Well, you know, I mean, end of the day, maybe it's certainly just a viewpoint on the world, and maybe there's those intrinsic things, you know, those beliefs which you've never really questioned. You just accepted they are what you are. and that is certainly part of my sort of value set. So I think, to answer the question, how did I become like that? Then it's probably just how I am, but like, built into that, if we're going to apply a logic to it, then like, good marketing is all about improving other people's lives. Marketing, when done well, is a noble act, because you are taking a problem in their life, you are matching it to a solution that you have, and you are communicating it very well. And really, in a sense, I don't see myself as the selfless, white knight coming in to improve people's lives and stuff like that. I sort of saw a problem, which was a problem that I had.
Mm-hmm.
The solution was a place which felt safe and kind and loving. And so I created that space, and in that sense, it is both selfish and selfless, because all I have done is created a solution for the problem that I had. And the selflessness comes in that other people are able to enjoy that too. So I do live my life in a way which benefits other people, because that's about legacy. And, if I think about two influential people in my life, then my granddad did everything based in love, which is where I got my loving aspect from. And my uncle Ian was a firefighter who died saving people's lives, and so his legacy was one of courageousness and bravery. And he instilled that in me. So really, when we speak about legacy and motivation, then my number one thing in life presently is to leave a legacy of kindness. So people, once they've interacted with me, will hopefully feel like they can be a little bit kinder to other people. And if I, as I say, I'm not spiritual, but like, if people have that feeling like, oh, I met Joe and now I feel kinder, then like, in a very selfish way, then my kindness lives on forever, and stuff like that. So I guess there's part of me which hates that argument about like, is there ever such a thing as a selfless act? But perhaps in framing the question as you have, we've come to a place where I can describe my acts as both selfless and selfish. So I think it's interesting to look at it that way, I guess.
It's a win-win scenario.
Yes.
It's a win-win scenario. We do things in entrepreneurship, in creating, in being a change maker, leaving a legacy. We are doing it selfish in a way that we are doing it for ourselves. In one, we want to create a community where we want the world to be a better place, to be a more loving place, to be a more kinder place, to be a more positive place. But we can't do that on our own.
No.
We there's only so much we can do as one person in order to make a difference to the people around us. And which is why I love the way you created, the marketing meetup and everything that you stand for and what you've created, because it's such the world needs it right now, especially the attitude of, being positive every day, especially in uncertain times like what we're going through right now, right? It's going to be tougher, it's going to be more challenging, but we can still be kinder. We can still help each other get through this. We can still pull each other up at the same time. Make the world a better place, right? We can't leave the hands in other people. So we have to do it ourselves.
Spot on, mate. Absolutely spot on. That's really quite lovely.
So thank you, Joe, for your time. If there was to look out for you, where can they go for more information?
I spend far too much time on LinkedIn. It's far too much time. So Joe Glover on there, and you can find me there. And if you're interested in the marketing meetup, then you can head to themarketingmeetup.com. I
highly recommend everyone to check out the marketing meetup and also sign up for the emails, because they're just so amazing to read every time.
They're a lot of fun though. I enjoy it.
Really great fun to read. I was like, oh, this is new. So Joe, thank you so much for what you do for the community and what you do and what you resonate and value as well. The world needs more people like you. And it's just appreciative for me an honor to have you on my podcast and share this, this conversation with you.
Thank you, mate. I appreciate you. I've appreciated you for a long time. Actually, you've been a great advocate and cheerleader of the marketing meetup, and being able to spend a little bit of time with you and hear about you and your motivations is also fascinating. So I hope people take the opportunity to sort of listen in, and not just for your guests, but also for you, because you're a good chap and you're doing good things. So you keep going.
Thank you.
All right, mate. There is.